Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar titled Sceletium Alkaloids, a new holistic approach to stress relief. This webinar today will be hosted by my colleagues, Kara Randazzo and Anna Wurz. I'm Amy Knock, and I'll be moderating the webinar today. So with that concludes my very brief introduction today. Anna, I will now pass it over to you. You may begin.
Hi, welcome everyone. My name is Anna Wurz. I've been working here at Eurofins Craft Technologies for about a year now as the department manager. I got my first foray into the industry in pharmaceuticals, went back to get my PhD, and then started working here at Eurofins in the Wilson, North Carolina site. We specialize in nutraceuticals, supplements, and food and feed.
Thanks, Anna. And I'm Kara Randazzo. I'm also presenting with you guys today. I am the inside sales and customer service representative here at Eurofins Craft. I have worked at Eurofins for 10 years. It'll be 11 years in July. I started out in the contaminants and pesticides at our location in New Orleans, and I transitioned over to the carotenoids and phenolics location in Wilson, North Carolina about 4 years ago. So that's me. Thank you guys again for joining. So I wanted to start us off by talking a little bit about Eurofins Craft. Eurofins has multiple divisions within US Foods, and so they're no strangers to giving and hosting webinars, but this is our first ever one. So we're really excited to be here today and showcase some of the things that we do. On this slide, you'll see our offerings, our matrix capabilities, and instrumentation. Something I wanted to highlight here is that we are one of the few food laboratories that accepts serum and plasma. We also accept tissue, both human and animal. We are not CLIA or GLP certified, but we do participate in a lot of preclinical-esque studies. And as you can see on the left-hand side, we do a lot of carotenoids, biologicals, and then Anna will touch a little bit more about some of the customized projects that we do as it relates to Sceletium Alkaloids. So today we're going to talk to you about the history and discovery, the pharmacological effects, method overview, matrices, and we'll end it with a case study. So Sceletium alkaloids are derived from the flower, the succulent plant. It's to the right here, a picture. It's the plant is called Sceletium tortuosum, and it's native to South Africa, and it's used in traditional medicine, and it has been used in tribes for centuries. Indigenous people would medicate by steeping, smoking, or chewing the plant. It has different ways that you can prepare and consume the sample, and in the ways that you do it, you have different effects. Some of those effects can be a mood-enhancing and calming effect. It can treat abdominal, muscle pain, can treat nausea, toothache. A lot of the hunters back in these tribes would use it during their hunting periods because it was known to suppress their appetite. And not only was it used to suppress appetite, but it also, they claimed, improved cognitive function. So I thought that was really neat. And the first evidence of this plant is from a painting all the way from 1685.
So although Sceletium tortuosum has been used for centuries, the phytochemical properties weren't studied until around 1898. So 4 compounds were identified as the biologically active constituents of Sceletium tortuosum and were subsequently isolated from the plant. And those are mezembrin, mezembrinone, mezembrinol, and mezembrinol. So mezembrin is the principal active component and is the most pharmacologically potent out of these 4 alkaloids. But these other compounds are important. Mezembrinone can enhance mezembrin's effects and create a heightened state of calm, and mezembrinol can also contribute to the relaxing effect and actually help improve sleep. And another fun fact, the molecule of mezembrin, as shown here in the bottom right, also kind of looks like MC Hammer wearing his parachute pants. So, you know, both will boost your mood, one through its chemical effects and the other through its musical effects. But there are many other pharmacological effects besides making you happy that Sceletium alkaloids can provide. One is anti-anxiety. So the alkaloid family provides effects similar to a serotonin reuptake inhibitor or an SSRI. Can also be an antidepressant. The Zembrin has agonist activity on GABA receptors, which have been linked to depression, and also delta opioid receptors, which play a role in pain perception, emotional processing, and addiction. Some anti-stress properties were determined by dosage studies in humans, where Sceletium alkaloids were found to attenuate the subcortical threat circuitry in the brain, which I'll actually talk about more in the next slide. And alkaloids were also found to have more moderate analgesic activity in rats. Additionally, their anti-inflammatory properties have been linked to its phosphodiesterase inhibitor ability, which leads to a reduction in inflammation. And then lastly, the plant Sceletium tortuosum has been shown to have some microbial properties. There haven't been any studies linking this to Zembrin just yet. So because these properties of Sceletium alkaloids are so beneficial, in 2013, Terbeg et al. Wanted to study the anxiolytic effects of Sceletium alkaloids in humans. They published this article in Nature, which is a very well-respected journal in the scientific community. And these results were very exciting for those interested in Sceletium alkaloids. It was previously determined through rat studies that the mechanism of action for Sceletium alkaloids is to block serotonin transporters, again, similar to the activity of SSRIs such as Prozac or Zoloft. But also Sceletium alkaloids can inhibit phosphodiesterase 4 or PDF4 within the central nervous system. And this is significant because PDE4s are found throughout the brain and downregulate the cyclic AMP cascade. Therefore, PDE4 inhibitors increase CAMP activity, which may in turn result in an antidepressant effect. And additionally, a combination of an SSRI with a PDE4 inhibitor has been shown to have synergistic therapeutic effects by increasing efficacy and decreasing the negative long-term effects. So we could potentially get both effects by taking Sceletium alkaloids. This study in humans was designed to test the effectiveness of Zembrin, which is the name brand of Sceletium alkaloids, as an anxiolytic treatment. This was a double-blind, placebo-controlled study with 16 participants taking either 25 milligrams of Zembrin or the placebo control. And then the doctors scanned their brain using functional magnetic resonance imaging or fMRI before and then during a perceptual load and an emotion matching task. So a little background, the perceptual load task is designed to simulate stress, and the emotion matching task is used to elicit a fear response. And then they measured the patient's blood oxygenation level dependent response in the bilateral amygdala, which is in the bottom right figure. And the amygdala relays threatening information to the cortex and helps with the regulation of fear and anxiety. So we see in this top graph that the results of the study found that Zembrin reduced anxiety-related amygdala activity, as well as reduced the connectivity of the amygdala with the cortical or subcortical threat circuitry. So in other words, in layman's terms, Zembrin really did help alleviate anxiety. So these studies in rats and humans have only reiterated the benefits of taking Sceletium alkaloid as a supplement, and as a result of this demand, we aimed to develop and validate a method to separate and analyze the potency of the 4 alkaloid constituents in raw materials and supplements. So our validated method is a modified version from the South African Journal of Botany. It utilizes reverse phase high-performance liquor chromatography with a gradient elution. I'm using a C18 column and a diode array detector. We calibrate at time of use with the 4 purified mezembrin alkaloids in order of retention time: mezembrinone, mezembrinol, mezembrin, and mezembrinol. And for a sample preparation, we use simple single flask method for raw materials And for more complex matrices, we can utilize an additional acid-base extraction after that initial sample prep.
And here's an example of what you might see if you request Sceletium alkaloids. So this is a copy of our analytical report, and it lists the parameters, as Anna mentioned, at the bottom left-hand side, along with the total reported alkaloids based on those 4 parameters. Our default LOQ for this is microgram per gram. Of course, we can change that if that's something that you would like shown on the report, but otherwise it will be reported in our default. Additionally, you'll notice that there's a retention time coincidence. That is something that will not be shown unless requested, but it's just kind of to show that it is something that we can do if you'd like to see that on your report. And so some of the sample matrices that we generally see are the raw material, and that usually comes in the form of powder. So our original method was validated specifically for raw materials, so we do that very routinely, don't have any issue with any of the raw materials that are coming in. Finished products, some of these, which you can see as powder, tablets, capsules, some of these are used with our original method, but others might require a cleanup step, which I don't want to talk too much about because Anna will get into the details of that. But it's just to say that tablets, although they can work with our original method, not all tablets, as we know, are formulated the same. And so it's important to understand what other ingredients, especially if those tablets contain some type of botanical beforehand, so we can understand the product a little bit better and how we can prepare and analyze it. So I did just want to give that disclaimer. And lastly, some other possible matrices, and likely for matrix validation, include some liquid extracts, soft gels, and oils. Although we haven't seen these type of matrices yet, we are open to using our current methods and cleanup steps to see if we can get really good chromatography. If not, we're going to talk about a case study that shows what we had to do for some of the tablets that did not work, and use that maybe as a solution if your product is under this category.
So like Kara said, we were approached with a supplement containing a raw material of Sceletium alkaloid and another dietary ingredient, and we were asked to test for Sceletium alkaloids. But the problem was that upon initial analysis, we realized that the extra ingredient caused significant matrix interference in the chromatogram, especially around the retention time of those last 2 eluting peaks. So in order to remedy this, we had to take a deep dive into the solubility properties of both the raw material and the dietary ingredient. So interestingly, alkaloids in acidic conditions are soluble in water, whereas in an alkaline environment, it's a free base and prefers moderate organic conditions. We were able to utilize these properties to remove the dietary ingredient under acidic conditions and then extract the alkaloids under basic conditions. This is a technique commonly used in organic chemistry called an acid-base extraction. Shout out to all my fellow organic chemists in the audience. So that's how we were able to remedy that interference and get some pretty peaks, which we'll see in the next slide. So here's a comparison of the standard material on the left versus the sample after the cleanup step on the right. And the sample chromatogram is just zoomed in to show the separation of the peaks better, but we see that we were able to get really well-defined peaks with good shape and resolution, which is what we want. So again, this is a really great example of a way that we can develop and then validate a preparation for a specific matrix, and then have a beautiful results for a client.
So why are we talking about this now? 80% of the world's population practices traditional medicine as a form of healthcare, while 42% of Americans still use some form of traditional or holistic medicine. And as Anna said, we are just learning about the chemical properties and the benefits, and there's still so much to learn about this plant. And the fact that it's also so diverse in the sense that it spans over multiple industries. We're going to see it in food, such as chocolates and gummies, and these are something that, you know, consumers can just go to the store and get, and they claim that it combats social anxiety. So it's more preferred over maybe someone taking alcohol instead. So we're seeing that kind of trend go up. We're seeing this also in clinical practices. You know, that clinical study showed that it actually did help with depression. And in no way do we feel, or in no way is it stated that it replaces current depression medication or should be taken in addition to, but it's more so for individuals with acute depression. So kind of learning how taking something with alkaloids can change from individual to individual. Also, we saw that there is an Alzheimer's study. It claims to help with cognitive benefits. And so the results of the study are not known yet because it's still ongoing. But I really just wanted to mention it just to highlight some of the unknowns of some of the benefits that it could still have for people. And also, people want to use it as an alternative to pharmaceutical drugs. The claims are that, you know, there's not really an overdose, so to speak. I think the worst symptom to have is maybe a stomach ache, and I think that not having such a detrimental, you know, issue with liver or kidneys, people are kind of leaning more towards this holistic approach. And so we would expect increased demand in these natural remedies and perhaps different forms on how people can take them. And so here, lastly, here are some references that we have that pertain to the content of the material that we shared with you today. And then I'll pass it to Amy.
Thank you so much, Kara, and thank you to you and Anna for the presentation. We are going to move into some commonly asked questions. So the first commonly asked question is, how much volume do you need?
So we would ask for 30 grams, and 30, if it's coming in a tablet or capsule, we would ask for 30 tablets or capsules.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that guidance. The next question is, what is the turnaround time?
Yes, so the standard turnaround time would be 14 calendar days.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then the third and final question that I wanted to ask of you today are, what are the limitations to validating a matrix?
That'll be me. So I would say, you know, what we talked about with an ingredient or perhaps an excipient interference within the chromatogram that we couldn't extract or isolate from the Sceletium alkaloids. And another one that we urge clients to pay attention of is kind of the limit of the method and the limit of the instrument. For example, you know, we use UV versus mass spectrometry. UV specifically, like, you know, on the lower wavelengths at 228 or 280 nanometers. So just be mindful of, you know, the limit of quantification LOQ of the sample that you would want to submit. And then another consideration would potentially be a degradation of your compound after manufacturing or during sample prep. Sceletium alkaloids is pretty stable in solution, but it can degrade with an excipient over time. Or if we weren't able to, you know, extract it from a certain matrix without degrading the alkaloids itself, that would potentially be a limitation. But, you know, if we get over those limitations, we can definitely do a matrix verification for you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's very helpful. So that will conclude today's session. And I want to thank you, Kara and Anna, for your expertise and presentation. And thanks to everyone for attending today.